morning, I want to talk to you on separation. And take you on the roller coaster ride as we ride away from it and then back up to it. We originally started in the realm of beingness only, whole, complete, perfect, nothing needed, nothing to be changed, nothing to be added to, changed. Everything was just 100% all perfect. And that's the state of beingness. We were up there, we came down to the bottom, and we're on our way back up to the top. Originally, we started off creating what we now call the mind. And in order to have a separateness from the oneness, with the mind you set up a body. Called a causal body. There are three major main states we inhere in right now. And the top state is the causal. Where you assume a mind, and the mind assumes that you have a body. But the limitations on the body are so minimal, you hardly see it. And any idea that you have when you're in the causal realm is fulfilled the moment you have the idea. And now when you get back up there, the same thing will happen. It's the realm that the great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, are in right now. Any idea is fulfilled the moment you have it. But once we start out, we make that whole trip, and we get denser. We go from the causal to the astral. To the physical. In the astral realm, we have a denser body, a little more obstructed than up here. Our ideas are carried out in steps through connections and motions and meetings and so forth in the astral realm. When you're in the astral realm, you're dealing with people, the same people you deal with in the physical, but things happen immediately. And when you come down into the physical, is where you really hang yourself up the most. Everything is done with difficulty, the greatest of obstaculation you can think of. You got to do this to get that, and you're subject to 1,000 things, and so forth and so on. And it is the slowest way of achieving whatever it is you wish. Now this is multi-millions of years. And if you want to know where we are, we're not there. We're right here. You have begun getting out of the densest state possible to beings anywhere, everywhere in the universe. And most of you will go back into the astral causal, and then go home. I hope this doesn't scare you, but when you're totally free, you're not confined by anything called something this size. When you're totally free, you're not limited to anybody. You identify with your beingness. You let it flow out over the entire universe from infinity to infinity. Your beingness just moves out into the total beingness of the universe, and there's only a single oneness. But you do let go of the confinement called the body. You can see it's a limitation, it's this much. The body's not spread out over the universe, but your beingness is. And now you look at the body as being you, and therefore that's how big your universe is. As you let go, as you release, as you detach from the body, your beingness spreads out until eventually you just be your beingness only. And that's the ultimate state, and you will never ever be satisfied until you go all the way. You'll always be scratching for something, no matter how heavenly life gets. And it gets heavenly here, more so there. And so you're on a trip where you've gone more than half the way, you're coming out. But here's the practical thing to hold on to. Being in the heaviest, densest state, we are in the most confined, cribbed, crunched state, and the most miserable state, and therefore the incentive to get out is greatest where we are in the physical. Right here you have the greatest incentive to get out. And it's only here that you can go immediately right back to there. If you graduate out of the physical by letting go of all attachments and aversions to the physical, you'll get on this path. You'll become a saint, a master, and this takes eons. As heavenly as it is, there's always something missing, there's always something lacking, which is the top state. If you're aware of this, you can bypass what the large majority of us do. The large majority will do this. However, any one of us here, in this lifetime, or less, in a matter of months, if you will carry out the 6 steps of the method, you can go all the way to the top. Tremendous advantage being where we are in the physical. Because the motivation to get out of that hell is there. I have noticed in other worlds where their way of life is so harmonious. Everyone loves everyone. And life is so easy. Nature produces an overabundance of everything. The incentive to move out of it isn't there. They can see what is needed, but they're not motivated to do it like that. But not being totally free. Every once in a while things bother them, and so they'll gradually, eventually, go back home to being this only. All so-called life eventually goes back there, including the animals, the insects. The animals graduate into being human beings. And if you look at our co-beings in Africa and so forth, you can see that they live very much like an animal lives. They have no ambitions. If the food grows or drops off a tree, they eat it. If it doesn't, most of them starve to death, just like the animals. So the chances are that a lot of our people on this planet are recently up from being animals. At the same time, because it's such a low state, it provides the very best avenue to go free. Thank God for the hell, because it pushes us to the heaven. So if you remember, the opportunities here are the very greatest and rare to go free. Other worlds are heavenly compared to this, and it puts us on a long trek of multi-millions of years before we go all the way. Up here, an idea is completed totally the moment you have the idea. Here you do things quickly. Here we do it the way we do it now. With ugly struggle. Endless trouble. And there's only one way up. It's letting go of all the restrictions, all the programs. Basically letting go of the feelings, which are programs. All the feelings were put in as automatic programs to keep the body surviving. Release all your feelings, your mind goes quiet, and what I say to you becomes self-obvious. You see that you've always been whole, complete, perfect, all-knowing, all-powerful, and that you blinded yourself by identifying with the physical body, thinking you're limited and subject to it, identifying with the world as being a victim of it, whereas you actually created the world. There's nothing out there but your consciousness. Everything you see is in your mind. You take your mind and get rid of it, you're free. Your mind turns out to be the number one obstacle to your unlimitedness. But it's so awful, we have suppressed it. We call it unconscious. But now you have a way of undoing that unconscious mind. Every feeling was put in as a pro-survival program for the physical body. And every feeling is actually anti-survival. Release all those feelings, and you become very obvious to yourself that you were always all-powerful, all-knowing. And how long does it take? As long as you make it. How quick is it? As quickly as you'll do it. There isn't anyone here who couldn't do it in a matter of weeks or months. Because you've got the way. No feelings, your mind is quiet, you're self-obvious to yourself. Feelings, you're always doing something to try to keep the body surviving. centered in on this body to keep it surviving, we are preventing ourselves from going free immediately. I want to get practical from here on. How do we go from here up that way? Well, one excellent way is on the theme of givingness. When you're up at the top, you're all giving. You're a Christ. Your only thought is to help others. You're as free as you are in your wanting to give. You must start giving by letting go of the wanting to have and take care of me. Your consciousness has to go out to others. You should be wanting to help everyone. And practically, if you make this a point in your living, you're going to start moving out up this way. You've got to become a Jesus Christ. If he were here, would he come, what would he be doing? Opening up a grand religious business or something to make money? His only interest would be to help us. His only interest is to help others. We must become that way. And practically you can do it by practicing it, making it a point. Our chart is a scale of givingness. The more we're to the left, the more we're wanting to have. The more we're to the right on the chart, the more we're wanting to give. Right in the middle of courageousness, you're equally giving and equally taking. Right there, you're 50% selfish to the left, and to the right, you're 50% selfless. You've got to become totally selfless to go free. You've got to get yourself up over the ag flap and move into the cap. Above courageousness, you have the inner energy to move up rapidly. Above courageousness, you can dig down deep into your feelings of the fear of dying and allow them to come up and out. You lose the fear that if I let my fear of dying come up, I'll die. You keep your feelings suppressed because you think if they come into your consciousness, they are actual. They are only feelings, and the feeling of dying is only a feeling. The truth is you cannot die. But you've got to move up in your sense of givingness. I think that's a more practical word than telling you to be more and more selfless. But it's in givingness that we'll go fast and high. No more thinking. The free state is no thinking whatsoever. The free state is working intuitively only. You don't think anymore. And you don't fit in with the world. The world is just loaded, overloaded with limitation. So you naturally float off to a place where you're not annoying the others who want you to be limited like they are. This is the reason why the free ones tend to isolate. Not for their own benefit, so as not to annoy the others who want the free ones to be limited. And there's no communication. The non-free ones are saying, what do you mean this world isn't real and miserable. Now the ego, what does the ego sense? You're asleep, there's no body, there's no world, there's no difficulties. Right? You wake up and you say, oh, there's a world there. And second, oh, I'm this body in this world. And therein lies all your trouble. When you go free, you cannot identify with the body. See, Ramana Maharshi talks that way. He really doesn't say I think, put in the book. He would talk about Bhagavan. Bhagavan is a revered one, but is what it means. He could never see himself as that body. And that's what you'll do when you're free. First, you'll see your body as objective to you, like every other body. Then in the end, you see no body. So all you see is the beingness. You don't see it, you just be the beingness that you are. That's the ultimate state. You've got to be your beingness only. How? Release the fear of dying, and then the next step is not as difficult, the feeling of separation from the oneness. Someday you'll discover there's nothing out there but your picture, and your picture isn't everyone else's picture. There are a lot of agreements. It's so obvious when an accident happens. Half a dozen people see it, there's a half a dozen different reports on it. They're all looking at the same thing. But what we see is our picture. So if you see no destruction, there never will be any destruction for you. You see perfection, that's all you'll ever meet. So regardless of what seems to be out there, you've got to see the perfection where the seeming imperfection now seems to be. The imperfection is a seemingness, and very seeming. But you've got to get to see the perfection where the present seeming imperfection seems to be. And that will be your picture. And now as to the way to the top. The big question is, well, why don't I do it now? The answer is you don't want it, you want the world. Most people release to make the world a good world. Most people release to get out of misery, instead of releasing to get into the ultimate state. They release to get out of the problem. But if you will do the 6 steps, the 2 that you're not doing are making it constant, and the 6th step, making it a delightful trip all the way. But it takes constancy to make it a delightful trip all the way. Most of you are roller coasting up and down in your garbage, up a bit higher, down in your garbage. But the bottoms keep moving up. So when you hit bottom, it's not as bad as it was before. And someday you reach a point where your bottoms are in happiness. So you should not stop until you're all the way. I think the majority of our graduates get to the point where the world turns out to be a good world, where they straighten out their relationships, their finances, and then they try to enjoy that good life. You can't stop. Ask Michael, he'll tell you. What Michael did was he stopped. When he was up having all that, he said, oh, I got the answer. Just keep releasing all the time. Remember when you told me that? But you stopped. Had you continued, you were at a high point, you'd have got to the place where you would have created mentally, instantly. But you stopped. No. You had to give yourself that lesson of, it's not in the materiality that I created, it's in my ability to create that the happiness is. You did a beautiful job on creating, I remember. Am I right when I say when I met Michael, he could hardly buy a cup of coffee? And boy, was he negative for quite a while. Then all of a sudden he set out goals. I remember, right, one of the big ones was to get an important part on Broadway, and he got it. He was very good in it. During which he wrote a goal to get an important part in a movie. So they brought Cruising into New York, and Michael got a good part in that. And then I think the next goal was to make 6 figures. And he made it, nice and easily. And then he went the extreme, house in the Hamptons, a sports car, and everything else. And he had the answer. He said, make it constant. After which I said, you ever think of joining us? That's just saying, Michael, don't you think you ought to get with helping others now so you can move further? And he said, no. And he got stuck. And he had in that material wonderland that he created, and you can't stand still. If you're not going up, you'll be going down. No standing still. If you're not moving upwards, you're moving downwards. And that was the lesson Michael had to teach himself. Can't stop. Keep releasing. Had you continued it, Michael, you'd have been free by now. By that I mean the ability to dematerialize that body and rematerialize it, to create anything instantly by effortless thought. You need these yardsticks to judge yourself by. Imperturbability, where nothing can anymore disturb you, not even death. Facing death doesn't disturb you one iota.